friends, you're back here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and in this episode of the Taxidermy Witch, we are going through this book, which I found a little snippet on the Akashic records. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you guys about Akashic records and tell you who Edgar Cayce is. So please grab some tea and join me while we sit and have a little chat. Okay, as you see, I've got my husband's phone on the table because there are some things that we're going to need to read off of the phone because it didn't have a ton or anything about Edgar Cayce in here, and he is directly connected to the Akashic records, and I'll tell you why. But before I forget, I want to tell you something awesome about my candle. If you burn a pillar candle with the fan on, it will do some creepy cool things. See? The wind just like blows it and it starts as a little drip and then it's this like honkin' chunk. So I've turned the fan off because... Anyway, that's how you can get some really awesome shapes to your candles. Just turn the fan on, and if you want some amazing ones, turn it on a little bit higher. Not high enough it would blow it out, but when you're almost there, yeah? Okay, Akashic records. Does anybody know what they are already? If you do, please comment below and tell me how you first heard about it, where you first heard about it, your initial thoughts on it, because it does have to do with witchcraft because it ties directly to the astral plane. So, without further ado, let me tell you what the Encyclopedia of Wicca and Witchcraft by Raven G has to say about the Akashic records. Akashic records is a term referring to a magnetic or etherical plane in which the energy platform of all that has transpired upon the earth is imprinted. This is not unlike data being stored on magnetic computer disks. Occultists believe that the energy imprints contained within the Akashic records can be accessed through magical and psychic methods. On the astral plane, the Akashic records are envisioned as an immense library containing collective records of the ages that have passed on Earth. Spontaneous knowledge and, to a degree, even intuition can be a tapping into of the Akashic levels of energy. Wiccan teachings refer to a psychic ability known as hearing the voice of the wind. And I'm going to read to you about hearing the voice of the wind as well. This is related not only to links with the Akashic records, but also to one's rapport with the spirits of the old religion. Each Tavik tide serves as a vortex through which one may access the Akashic records. The Akashic records themselves lie within the Odic mantle of Earth, an occult term for the etheric components of the Earth's magnetic field. Ether is air. Etheric. Okay, and then it says you can also see astral plane, ether, kundalini, Odic mantle, Tavik tides, and voice of the wind. The one I'm going to be reading you, though, is voice of the wind, because I want to focus most of what I talk about on Edgar Cayce. As well as Voice of the Wind, I do want to talk about the Triangle of Manifestation, but we may have to do that in another video, I'm thinking. Okay, Voice of the Wind is a term used to denote several things in Wiccan cosmology. It is often employed when speaking of intuitive psychic abilities. When a person feels directed, inspired, or channels a spirit entity speaking directly through a person, we say that he or she hears the voice of the wind. It can also mean that a person has accessed the Akashic records and is tapping into ancient memories. Hearing the voice of the wind is sometimes used to indicate that a person hears the voices of spirits or fairies. Well, I hear the voices of the wind because I can directly connect with spirits, and I do this clairaudiently. I can hear them, literally hear things in my head. And when I was a girl, for the longest time, I thought that I was going to end up in the loony bin because I heard voices in my head. And then once I kind of figured out that they were not there to harm me, they were there to be my friends and to help. But we've talked about that before. However, your intuition is a voice of the wind. I believe. And this book says it can be, but I believe intuition is the voice of the wind. And we all just have to trust and listen hard enough to to get there. So, without further ado, let's talk about one of the greatest, most killer men to walk the earth during our lifetimes here, okay? And that is Edgar Cayce. Now, I'm going to tell you a story in my own words about who Edgar Cayce is, but then I'm going to read this. So my husband Alex told me within the first, couple months of us meeting, have you ever heard of, because we're both into a cult, we're both into aliens, we're both into conspiracies, we're both into the whole block of unusual, supernatural, and unconventional things. Excellent, perfect marriage material in my opinion. He says, do you know who Edgar Cayce is? I said, no. He goes, well, he's this guy who in the, early 1900s, like 30s or 40s, he used to heal people of things like even cancers over the phone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, he was so psychic, and he was able to tap into these things called the Akashic records, which spirits can show you. He could literally hear someone's voice or just hear their situation and know how to cure them medically. And he did this time after time after time after time with thousands of people, saved lives. And he was not a medical doctor, from what I know. He was not trained in anything. He was an American clairvoyant, and probably one of the most famous clairvoyants, okay? So, there's also a story that Alex told me, and it was like one of the ones that made me, if this is true, then it's such a, this is the grabber. This is what's going to grab people. He was getting ready to, I'm going to tell the story wrong probably, but he was getting ready to treat a woman. His plane was late getting there because he was doing a face-to-face. I'm not going to tell the story because I don't remember like all the bits to it, but let's just get into what, let me show you some pictures here. There's Mr. Edgar Cayce. And his first name is spelled Edgar, and his last name is spelled Cayce. Edgar Cayce was an American clairvoyant who answered questions on subjects as varied as healing, reincarnation, wars. That's right, I forgot. He was also a humongous, what do you call it when people can predict the future? Prophesizer. What do you do when you prophesize and you tell what's going to be? Not prophesize. My words aren't with me. Jennifer, just stick to reading. Okay. So again, this is from Wikipedia. March 18th, 1877 to January 3rd, 1945. Edgar Cayce was an American clairvoyant who answered questions on subjects as varied as healing, reincarnation, wars, Atlantis, and future events while claiming to be in a trance. A biographer gave him the nickname the Sleeping Prophet. A non-profit organization, the Association of Research and Enlightenment, was founded to facilitate the study of Cayce's work. It says that he's from Christian County, Kentucky. He died in Virginia Beach at the age of 67. He now rests in Riverside Cemetery in Hopkins, Kentucky. He was American. His occupation was a mystic clairvoyant. He was married to Gertrude Evans, and she died the same year he did. He had 3 children and 2 parents. Okay, let's just try and do claims for psychic abilities. Oh, I didn't know this. This is so cool. Some consider him a true founder and a principal source of the most characteristic beliefs of the New Age movement. Cayce is also notable for his contributions of the notions of diet and health, particularly in the issues of food combining acid and alkaline diet and the therapeutic uses of food. Okay, claims for psychic abilities. Until September 1923, his readings were not systematically recorded or preserved. Weird. However, an article published in the Birmingham Post-Herald on October 10, 1922, quotes Cayce saying that he had given 8,056 readings as of that date, and it is known that he gave approximately 13,000 to 14,000 readings after that date. A total of 14,306 are available at the ARE Cayce headquarters in Virginia Beach, and I'm guessing that means Akashic Records something. And an online member-only selection along with the background information, correspondence, and follow-up documentation. So everything he predicted has been documented after that date. That's awesome. I would love to get that book. The other abilities that have been attributed to Cayce's include astral projection, prophesizing, mediumship, viewing the Akashic Records or Book of Life, and seeing auras. Cayce said he became interested in learning more about these subjects after he was informed about the content of his readings, which he reported that he never actually heard himself. So when he was in this trance, he couldn't even hear what he was saying. Now let me go to controversy and criticism. Cayce advocated some controversial ideas in his trance readings. In many trance sessions, he interpreted the history of life on Earth. One of Cayce's controversial claims was that of polygenism, Polygenism. According to Cayce, 5 human races, white, black, red, brown, and yellow, had been created separately but simultaneously on different parts of the Earth. Cayce also accepted the existence of aliens and Atlantis, and claimed that the red race developed in Atlantis and its development was rapid. Another claim by Cayce was that soul entities on Earth intermingled with animals to produce things, giants, that were as much as 12 feet tall. Historian Olav Hammer wrote that many of Cayce's readings discuss race and skin color, and that the explanation for this is that Cayce was not a racist, but was influenced by the occult ideas of Madame Blavatsky, Blavatsky. Cayce declared that the Piltdown Man was genuine, claiming that he was an Atlantean colonizer who had traveled to Britain. However, the Piltdown Man was exposed as a hoax in 1953. Philosopher and skeptic Robert Todd Carroll, in his book The Skeptic's Dictionary, wrote, Cayce is one of the main people responsible for some of the sillier notions about Atlantis. Carol mentioned some of Cayce's ideas, including his belief in giant solar crystal, activated by the sun and used to harness energy and provide power on Atlantis, and his prediction in 1958 the United States would rediscover a death ray that had been used on Atlantis. In 1930, Cayce also incorrectly predicted that North America would experience chaos. Los Angeles, San Francisco will be among that will be destroyed before New York. These events were to have happened in the period from 1958 to 1998. Criticism. Skeptics challenge Cayce's alleged psychic abilities. Medical health experts are critical of Cayce's unorthodox treatments, which they regard as quackery. Science writers and skeptics have suggested that the evidence for Cayce's alleged psychic powers comes from contemporaneous newspaper articles, affidavits, anecdotes, testimonials, and books. Martin Gardner, for example, wrote that while Cayce's trances did happen, most of the information from his trance was derived from books that Cayce had been reading by authors such as Carl Jung, I love Carl Jung, Ouspensy, and Helena Blavatsky. Gardner's hypothesis was that the trance readings of Cayce contained little bits of information gleaned from here and there in the occult literature, spiced with occasional novelties from Cayce's unconscious. Michael Shermer writes, Why People Believe in Weird Things. Uneducated beyond the 9th grade, Cayce acquires his broad knowledge through voracious reading. From this, he wrote elaborate tales. Okay. I feel like this is just putting him down. But what I want to find is predictions, correct. Sorry, guys. Seven prophecies that came true, Edgar Cayce readings. I love the number 7. Why not? Edgar Cayce's 7 prophecies that came true. Number 1, the stock market crash of 1929. In February 1925, during a life reading for a 26-year-old physician, Cayce stated that the young doctor would soon find himself in possession of a great deal of money. The reading advised the individual to exercise caution and discretion in caring for his wealth, especially the face of adverse forces that will come then in 1929. On another occasion in March 1929, 6 months before the stock market crash, a New York stockbroker was given a severe warning of the impending great disturbance in the financial circles that was about to take place. 900 to 425. Cayce stated, We may experience a considerable break and bear market, you see. This issue being those of the reserves and nations and individuals, and will cause, unless another more stable banking conditions come to relief, a great disturbance in financial circles. This warning has been given, see? The second prediction, World War II. In 1935, in an amazing display of precognitive perception, Edgar Cayce warned a 29-year-old freight agent of catastrophic events that were building within the international community. In response to a question regarding global affairs, the readings described an entire world at war. Though not seeing the picture as necessarily an unchangeable destiny, Cayce warned that tendencies in the hearts and souls of men are such that these conditions could be brought about. And it goes on to say some other things. Number 3, the pole shift. Question: what great change, or the beginning of what change, if any, is to take place in Earth in the year 2000 to 2001 AD? Answer: when there's a shifting of the poles or a new cycle begins, 8:26 to 8:28, given August 11, 1936. Nova, the PBS television program, reported startling discoveries about our planet's electromagnetic poles and fields. The program was titled Magnetic Storm and was written and produced by David Stington. The reason this is of interest to us is that Edgar Cayce predicted that the beginning of the new age would coincide with the beginning of a pole shift. Okay, there's more to be said about that, but number 4, he predicted convergence in communications companies. The following reading, given in 1929, is an interesting one of convergence in large communication companies. These mergers did not indeed occur. Also, Cayce's description of how varied channels of communications working in a more cooperative and structured manner has come to pass. Question: will the consolidations take place of the communications company as given in 1928? Answer: these combinations in commutative forces has been and will take place. As to when and how, consider the conditions as prevent such a correlation at this time. Not only are there some of the laws as concerning some to be changed, but many of the larger holdings are to be won over by death even. And it goes on to talk about that. Number 5, the life of the essence. Edgar Cayce described the essence, E-S-S-E-N-S, in detail many years before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now you guys, if you don't know what the Dead Sea Scrolls are, start YouTubing and reading about them ASAP, because oh my gosh, this stuff, Atlantis, Dead Sea Scrolls, Akashic Records, give me goosebumps even just to think about. So please get into that, and I will do a video when I can on them for sure. So he predicted the Dead Sea Scrolls were going to be found. The first of the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, 2 years after Edgar Cayce's death. Cayce mentioned the instances in 171 different readings. Here are just a few excerpts. Before this, we find, well, and they give you a bunch of them, okay? The video is getting close, so I've got to just tell you the rest of the predictions. Number 6, blood used as a diagnostic tool. Now, for some of you young folks, DNA tests didn't happen until the early 1980s. I'm not kidding you. As far as for DNA, like to tie somebody to the scene of a crime, something like that. Technology is a fairly new thing, and Edgar Cayce died in, I think, 1945, so let's just remember for how long ago that was, what that actually means. During the course of a physical reading given for one individual, the reading foresaw future medical advancements that might make diagnosis from a drop of blood a possibility. The reading was given in 1927 at the time when the prediction would have been considered the makings of science fiction, for sure. And you can see the entire reading in quote. Number 7 of predictions, La Niña and El Niño effect. Amazingly, on May 28, 1926, Edgar Cayce made a connection between temperature change in deep ocean currents and weather changes in reading. Quote, as the heat or cold in the various parts of the ocean is radiated off, as the heat and cold in the various parts of the earth is radiated off and correlated with reflection in the earth's atmosphere, this is its action changes the currents or streams in the ocean. This reading was concerning the future of wheat crops and weather patterns, and Cayce's comments may be his version of what is known today as La Niña and El Niño. These are weather patterns that are a result of temperature change in the deep ocean currents, etc. So, and a note, prophecy and Edgar Cayce reading 7 prophecies that came true as future. Okay. And this was featured on the History Channel, apparently. So, also it says, access the Cayce readings, gain access to the entire online database of over 14,306 Edgar Cayce readings, plus receive our quarterly magazine, Venture Inward. And you can do all that online. Just look into it, okay? There's also a really rad prophecy DVD. There are so many good YouTube documentaries out there, you guys. So, I know I say thank you for joining me, but with this one, I really dearly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining me. Edgar Cayce. Something that my husband introduced to me early on in our relationship, and I've been thinking about it ever since, and I know you guys will too now. So, again, thank you for joining me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, for a little bit of interesting things on the Akashic Records. And if you guys want to see the Akashic Records, all you have to do is ask your spirit guides and meditations. Show me the Akashic Records. And this is one way that you'll get to see them, okay, you guys? All my love to you, Jen the Taxidermy Witch.